You had me at Cello, Cello. You had me at Cello. You had me at Cello. Oh, you had me at Cello. Playing the cello as. Good afternoon. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday. Just before you grab that cello to practice all weekend long, let's do another installment of Cello Chat. And with me this week is Lindsay Shank-Kirchner. Lindsay, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to have you on. So, Lindsay, for the sake of people who don't know you, would you tell about who you are and your musical background, how you got to where you are?
Sure. So I am originally from Janesville, Wisconsin. I started my music career, as it were, at around the age of 6 when I started taking piano lessons. And then my school district actually started orchestra in 4th grade in the 90s. So I started playing the cello in 4th grade, then continued on with both piano and cello all through middle school, all through high school, all through my undergrad, and then continued on with cello when I came to UW-Whitewater to do my teaching certification with UW-Whitewater. I've been in countless orchestras. I was in a chamber group at UW Parkside called La Camerata that we actually, I guess it was a couple years ago now, but we had a 10th anniversary performance. I was a technically a founding member of the Camerata. And then at UW-Whitewater, I participated in symphony, and I'm a alumni of the cello studio.
Excellent. All right. And what do you do now?
I am a middle school instrumental music teacher because I actually teach band and orchestra, but I teach primarily orchestra in the Fond du Lac School District at 2 of our many schools.
And so, and you play all 4 string instruments, and which band instruments?
My specialty is brass, but I can technically play everything. I'm not great at the flute.
All right. We won't ask you to play flute.
No, please don't ask me. I don't have one anyway.
All right. And Lindsay, what initially drew you to cello and piano?
So piano was more of a family tradition. My mother had taken piano lessons when she was a kid. So my sister and I both took. We have had, sadly, it is no longer with our family, this gorgeous upright grand from the, I think, early 1900s from a manufacturer out of Chicago that sadly had a cracked soundboard in it. But we got it for like very, very little money when I was growing up. And I played that until my parents just recently got rid of it. So that was where piano came from. And then oddly enough, so we had a group from the high school come to, demonstrate all the orchestra instruments when we were in it was either late 3rd grade or very early in 4th grade. Like if we didn't start right away at the beginning of the year. And they did the standard, they played some chamber pieces and then played each individual instrument. And then you got to come up and talk to whichever instrumentalist you wanted to talk to. Everyone went to violin. And no one went to cello. And I'm like, you know what? That one's cool. I'm going to do that one. And then I was the only female cellist for many years, like in elementary and middle school. And then in high school, we got a more diverse group.
All right.
But the cellos just got such a great sound. And I might be a little biased whenever I tell anyone I play cello, like, oh, it's my favorite string instrument.
It's true. You hear that a lot. All right. Well, terrific. What are some of the things that you do for motivating students to practice? I know you work primarily at an age where they're not at that age where it's too cool to do this or that or the other. They can still be very open in their excitement about an instrument, but still, just in human nature terms, they can use some additional incentivizing to spend more time playing their instrument to get better.
So I am a firm believer with my programs in pride, not perfection. And I found that by telling the kids that it's never going to be a perfect performance. it's just human nature. We're not robots. We can't always play everything perfectly. So I stress that it's more important to be proud of the performance you put in for the audience, for yourself, for our orchestra. And I have found that that seems to motivate kids more to practice. They don't want to let down their classmates. They don't want to let down the audience. They don't want to let down me. So since I started using that as opposed to everything has to be perfect, all these fingerings have to be accurate. Like obviously we want intonation and rhythm to be accurate, but the less we put stress on perfect, it has to be perfect, it has to be perfect, they seem more motivated just so they can be proud of what they do. I also I have a system for programming pieces for concerts. I program one piece they're going to learn something from. So it might be a new key signature, new time signature, new bowing articulation. For beginners, even dynamics and just staccato and tenuto bowings, different playing techniques, switching from pizzicato to arco and back and forth and how to do that. And so I do one of that. I do one that their parents are going to probably want to hear. So something in the more classical vein. And then I try to find something, if it's not specifically pop or music themed, something fun. So I'm a big fan of Soonhee Newbold's compositions for pretty much every level. And my kids seem to enjoy those the most. They like things that sound cinematic without necessarily being, oh, I know this from this movie. In fact, I've had several of those backfire on me where we get the music and they start working on, they're like, we don't like this. This isn't fun. I'm like, so that helps as well. I like to provide a lot of enrichment material too, whether that's, one of my favorites is called Twinkle Extreme. So it's Twinkle, Twinkle, but it's all done in eighth notes and like the tempo is extremely fast. So they like to work on that to try and get it as fast as humanly possible for them while playing it. And that, I'd love for them to practice the repertoire that I give them, but if I also can get them to play something, I'm happy. Their instruments don't live in the cabinet for, the entire school year. I'm a happy camper.
Right. Now, are there pieces that you found yourself arranging that like you think, oh, this is a great orchestra piece that would work well for band or a band?
I've actually done it the other way where I've taken band pieces and organized them for orchestra. I've also found that when buying music for band, I try, especially at the school I teach band at is a project-based learning STEM school. And my orchestras and bands are very small because the student population is very small. So I actually purchased a lot of flex arrangements that are written for essentially symphonic, but if you have a weird instrumentation or not, you can't cover everybody, you can play with what you have. And those also have orchestra parts in them. So I have in the past messed around with those to get them into an easier to play key for middle school, because since they are primarily flex for band, they're written in flats, which middle school, it's still a little iffy to work on flats. Definitely something I want to push towards this school year is getting them out of their comfort zone of D, G, and C.
Yes. All right. Excellent. And what about by virtue of regularly working with both band and orchestra, do you find that there are aspects of your string training that gets into the language you use with band players, or of course breathing with the band that informs the way that you conduct the orchestras?
I've started with all of my groups, whenever we're on stage for a performance, we actually do a couple of deep breaths in and out through our nose and out our mouth to help calm them down. I also do that with orchestras when we're warming up, just because I jokingly like to tell my kids we're an orchestra, we don't breathe. Because it's not something we study as orchestra people, but it's still important because it can help with phrasing and things like that. So I think that's definitely carried over from band into orchestra. And then with band, I sometimes find at the age level I teach, they're not great at listening to each other. Because if you think about how a band room is set up for a middle school versus how an orchestra room is set up, orchestra rooms, we set up in like a horseshoe. And band, they tend to be straight across in rows. So I've been messing around with horseshoeing band to help hear other parts, or moving the kids around, not necessarily keeping them with, woodwinds in front, brass in the back, percussion in the back, because it helps them be able to hear each other over the sound of their own instrument with, band's decibel level is quite higher than an orchestra.
Good for you. That sounds very interesting. And that, I think, makes for a good segue to some of your research has been in the area of popular music. I know there has been a trend for a while now to, particularly with orchestra, I don't think it's been as much of a problem with bands having more popular music kind of in their regular repertoire. But where has your research in popular music led you, and how does that inform your selection of repertoire, for example?
So when I did my master's thesis on popular music, it was from a literary standpoint, but oddly, what I faced a lot of difficulty was with people taking it as a serious discipline. And sometimes I think that some of maybe older teachers or people who were taught a certain way or played lots and lots of classical music maybe see popular music as less than. But I have found that when I program, so just as an example, we had our district string festival this past March, and we actually did like a rock themed concert. So we actually had these t-shirts made. So all the kids wore, black band, performance t-shirts with jeans. And we had a gentleman come down who's part of Rock Infused Orchestra out of Nina, and he played electric violin on a lot of the songs. And we programmed things. The elementary kids did a piece called Power Rock, which is 2 pieces by Queen that amazingly are arranged down to the point where you can still tell what it is, but it's not difficult for a beginner to play. The middle schools played Firework by Katy Perry and Jump in the Line by Harry Belafonte. The high school played everything from Ed Sheeran to Dropkick Murphys to just a whole range of popular music. And I don't think we've had a string festival that was that well attended in the years that I've taught here. The kids really enjoyed it, but where I like programming pop music is because it teaches them difficult rhythms. And a lot of standard repertoire for middle school, because when we play more difficult classical symphonic pieces, obviously we've got tricky rhythms and things like that. But in pop music, it teaches them weird syncopated counting and how to count a dotted eighth to a 16th note, which they might not encounter in traditionally orchestral music for that grade level. So I think it helps you strengthen their rhythmic sense, because like you had said, it's not so much of an issue for band. Band has had access to a lot of popular arrangements for a long time, to the point where sometimes I'll have kids say, well, band plays better music than we do. And I go, what do you mean they play better music than we do? Well, they get to play this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, we have the ability to play that. Just let me know. I'll look for it and we can give it a try.
Interesting. Yeah. And even beyond the band relationship with more popular music, their music has traditionally also had the more advanced rhythms at a younger age.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's, even when they get to college, it's very clear the string players versus the wind players in terms of their ability to roll with various rhythms.
I noticed that with my kids who share classes. So at Tyson Middle School, which is one of the other schools I teach at, I have students, since I'm only there on the one day, we have students that sometimes are there with me or sometimes they're in band when I'm there. And when we have the students who are also in band, they're where the rhythmic quality of their playing is stronger. But I find that the choral students are better at phrasing and bringing out melodies and things like that. So
interesting. And so you have some students that are in more than one.
Yeah. We at Tyson Middle School, you're allowed to take up to 2 musics. So we have some students who do band and orchestra. We have some students that do choir and orchestra, and then we have students who do just orchestra. And then those students are with me every class period that I'm there.
Excellent. And if I can jump back just a moment, the one school that you teach at that's a STEM school, but that also has a music program.
Yep.
I'm just wondering, is there anything different in terms of the curriculum expectations, or just even the mindset of the students? Or
no, I treat both programs equally, because it's pretty much the same setup at both schools. I have at Tyson, I have a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade orchestra, but at STEM, I have a 4th and 5th grade orchestra, a 4th and 5th grade band, 6th grade band, 6th grade orchestra, 7th and 8, 7, 8, 7, 8, and I also have some high school students as well. And when we're in the middle school and the elementary school, it's definitely the same. I program similar music. I have similar expectations. The only difference is it is a smaller group versus my group at Tyson. So just as an example, for this next school year, I have 70 orchestra students at Tyson. I have a class of 32 6th graders incoming for next year, which is going to be interesting. And at STEM, I think my biggest class, if I combine them all together, is 2022.
Sure.
And then when we divide them out, band and orchestra, they get even smaller. But it's similar expectations, similar personalities.
All right.
My high school kids are very motivated, though, at STEM. That we have a music lab next door to our room where they go. I have several who just go in and work on their own. I have 2 cellists who do that, and a bass player and pianist who do that as well.
Excellent. Good for them.
Yeah.
All right. Projects you have coming up. There's the performance at Nina.
Yes, the Rock Infused Orchestra, which is out of Neenah, Wisconsin. I'm just going to double check the date on that for you. Rock Infused Orchestra, they do entirely rock and pop themed concerts, and they work from, I believe the first rehearsal was the day after our last day of school, so that would have been June 9th. And they get the music early and they practice every Thursday for a couple hours. There's different level groups.
Okay.
And they are able to, their last performance is actually, they get like stage lighting and smoke machines, and it's very, very cool. They have a website. It is rockinfusedorchestra.com, and they also have a Facebook page. They've actually been around since 1999. Their concert is August 4th. It is going to be in Neenah. I'm sorry. It's going to be at Appleton at the Fox Valley Lutheran High School.
Excellent.
And I saw a preview of some of the music they're playing. It's going to be a very cool concert. And I believe they've streamed it in the past as well. If not, I think there'll definitely be some recordings. But
all right. And then any other plans you have for the remainder of 2022?
My district is actually participating this summer in a training from a woman out of Toronto called the Smart String Teacher Curriculum and Pedagogy. So we actually got selected to be a district to pilot a district-wide pedagogy and curriculum training. So I'll be doing that in July, and then we'll be working through that through the 2022-23 school year. It'll be really interesting to see like what it'd be like to have everyone on the same page as far as what we're doing to teach.
Right.
Because you have, the set standards that you're working towards, but everyone teaches a little bit differently. And obviously we'll all keep our individual teaching styles, but it'd be cool to be all on the same page for all 4 of us. So
interesting. I'll have to check back in with you and see what you think.
Absolutely.
All right. Terrific. Well, thanks so much, Lindsay. It's always great talking with you and seeing what you're up to, hearing what you're up to. So, and then for everybody, I hope you have a wonderful weekend and week, as much as you can work in the practicing during the week as well, before we next meet again at 5 o'clock next Friday. See you then, everybody. Take care.